minutes. Any questions or comments, points of clarification, observations that you might have on anything recorded thus far, both in terms of the meditations as well as a little bit entering into the pool of the teachings. Anything coming up? Yes, please. Oh, and what I'd like to do, some of you, I know your names very well, but what I'd like to do for the first 1, 2, 3 times, if you raise a hand and I call on you, if you just tell everybody your first. Some of you, I know your names very well, but what I'd like to do for the first 1, 2, 3 times, if you raise a hand and I call on you, if you just tell everybody your first name, because we heard 50-some names last night, kind of difficult to remember for any of us, and so remind everybody of your first name, and then whatever comment or question you'd like to make. So, whatever your name might be.
Okay, my name is Beate.
Yes.
I would like to ask a question to this morning session.
Oh yes, can you stop? We would like to have this, and so we're inviting the podcasters to listen with us, so the question and the response.
Okay, my question is regarding this morning session. You mentioned that the tactile sensation of the breath has, in order to achieve shamatha, subside because there is no object in this regard. And then you mentioned that the rhythm of the breath, that's still possible to experience. But isn't the rhythm just a form of a tactile sensation?
Well, I'm happy to return to it, yeah. First of all, I would just make a subtle difference between respiration and breath, just because it's useful. And when I think of breath, I'm referring to that. The air coming in and out, that's breath. And the air goes down to the lungs. So if somebody gets punched in the stomach, you say, oh, you knocked the wind out of me. I can hardly get my breath back. But there's no air down there. The stomach, it doesn't, you know. And so the air goes down to the lungs, but nowhere else. It goes down to the lungs, it comes out, you know, what we don't need comes out. And so that's the breath. That's the passage of the breath from the apertures of the nostrils to the lungs. It comes out again. Respiration, the whole body's breathing. The whole body's breathing. And so this is clearly tactile sensations. The passage of the air over the nerve endings on your above the upper lip at the apertures of the nostrils, that's clearly tactile. And as we step into the pool, as we did this morning, and we're sensing these fluctuations. Now I'm going to use the word prana, because the term prana does refer to the breath on a subtle level. It also refers to vital energies, to chi, you know. That this is what Asanga is teaching, that you're actually attending to the sensations of the fluctuations, the movements of prana within the body as the breath is going in and out. You may feel these fluctuations down in your legs, certainly in your abdomen, in your limbs and so forth. Many places where the air is not going, I mean, there's just no air down there at all. You're attending to that. Now, when we venture into this, as we did this morning, are you attending to the rhythm of the breath by way of tactile sensations? Yeah, clearly. And can you continue to attend to those tactile sensations, which are in the desire realm? You've dropped your anchor of your awareness in the desire realm by attending these tactile sensations. They're subtle, yeah, but they're still in the desire realm because they're tactile. They belong to one of the 5 sensory fields. And so can you be focusing on those as the whole system quiets down and gets subtler and subtler and subtler? And maybe, if this is true of other people's experience, if this turns out to be a normal pattern and not just my idiosyncrasy, and that is it slips into this rhythm, 15 cycles for breath, and it gets subtler and subtler and subtler. Maybe that's universal, maybe not. Check. But as you do so, you're attending to increasingly subtle tactile sensations which let you know what is in the rhythm of the breath, long or short. You're still anchored in the desire realm. Okay? How far you could go? Certainly up to stage 7, 8, 9. You can go very far. These sensations are getting extremely subtle. Which means if you remain engaged, like the two of us shaking hands, and then the handshake gets subtler and subtler, right? Well, but I'm remaining engaged. The hands are still clasped. If you move your hand, I'm still with you. I pick up the sensations. If your intention is engaged with these sensations, and the sensations are getting extremely subtle, your mind's getting extremely subtle. Because if it doesn't, you're going to be shaking hands with thin air. You'll say, no more sensations. I'm not breathing. And so the very fact that these sensations get subtler and subtler as you proceed along these 9 stages is a feedback loop to invite you to ascend to subtler and subtler, higher frequency, higher resolution states of awareness, so that you can remain consciously, vividly attentive to and discerningly aware of extremely subtle sensations of the breath, but it's still desire realm, right? And when you cross the threshold on stage 9, you're still in the desire realm, and that's really fantastic samadhi. But your mind is still located within, dwelling within desire realm. And so what distinguishes between stage 9 and actually achieving shamatha is it's crossing the threshold. It's really very much like just putting one foot through the door. So now you can say, have you entered the room if one foot has entered the door? The answer is, yeah. You don't have to have your whole body in. You've entered. You could be accused of trespassing. Hey, you've just come into my space, right? Are you fully in? No, part of your body's outside, but you have crossed the threshold. And that's shamatha. That's access to the first jhana, and you have crossed the threshold into the form realm. You've seen into the promised land, right? And yet not full immersion yet. But now if that's the case, if your mind is now attending to the form realm, something that transcends the desire realm, you can't still have your anchor. It can't still be anchored in the desire realm. But now what we have from straight science, this is just indubitably true, is well established, that you can be dreaming. And let's say a lucid dream, just to make it clearer. When you're dreaming, at least in the lucid dreams I've had, I have no aware of anything in my physical environment. My body's lying in bed, I don't know whether I'm face down or on my side, curled up, I have no idea. It was very weird when I had my earliest lucid dreams to know that I had a body someplace, only by inference, and to have no perception of it. That's very weird, to have to infer the presence of your own body. But I was pretty sure I wasn't dead, and now you have the evidence. And so your awareness is completely withdrawn from the 5 physical domains. It's totally in the mental domain, right? But then, even then, and this we know scientifically, if in the midst of a dream you start practicing mindfulness breathing, you could, even though there's no air, you could practice mindfulness breathing submerged in a swimming pool. Because you may have discovered, if you've had lucid dreams, you can breathe underwater. Because there's no more or less air underwater than there is above water, because there's no water. And there's no air. There's no H2O or hydrogen or oxygen and so forth in a dream. It's not physical, right? So one of the tests, if you'd like to know whether you're dreaming or not, close your mouth, hold your nose, and see if you can still breathe. Yeah, you can breathe fine if you're in a lucid dream. Who needs a nose? You don't have any lungs in the dream. You don't have any air in the dream, so you can breathe perfectly well with your nose blocked and your mouth closed. That's one of the clear indicators. I must be dreaming, right? And so, but there it is. You can practice mindfulness of breathing in a dream and have no access whatsoever to any of the 5 sense fields. Because the rhythm of your breath in the dream corresponds exactly to the rhythm of the breath of the body lying in bed. Now that's a real suggestion. Oh, I'm attending my breath, but I'm not attending to anything physical at all. Right? Now, is your mind, when you're having an ordinary lucid dream, are the appearances in your dream, are they in the desire realm? Of course they are. Yeah. One could be having a dream of an extremely attractive person and feeling sexual attraction. Well, that's about as much desire as it gets, you know. Or see a great brand new Maserati. Ooh, I'd like one of those, you know. And lo and behold, you get one. So it's still the desire realm. But you're out of the sensory already. Now that we know unequivocally. And the preliminary data, this is just my own little research, doing very small research, is that if, again, it's easy to test. It's easy to test. Anybody can do this. Anybody listening by podcast. Some people are very gifted in this regard, even without a lot of meditative training. Some people find it very easy to have lucid dreams. So run the experiment. And if you get some very clear conclusions, let me know. I'm interested. Preliminary research suggests, and this research, by the way, was free. It's wonderful to have free research. But the preliminary research indicates that you may be in a lucid dreamless sleep. And if you're in a lucid dream, this is really easy. And you're in the midst of a very lucid dream, and you'd like to shift from there to lucid dreamless sleep. It's very easy. Stop in the midst of a dream. Don't do anything. Don't attend to or engage with anything in the dream. You may as well close your eyes. A matter of seconds, the whole dreamscape will vanish. it's maintained only by your attention to it, by engaging with it. Don't attend to it, don't engage with it, it evaporates. You basically turned off the machine that turned on the holographic image or the story. You turned it off. If, when you do that, you don't pass out, if you don't pass out, you maintain the flow of cognizance, your lucidity, then you go directly, seamlessly, from a lucid dream to lucid dreamless sleep. Okay? So, podcasters, there are many more of you than there are people here in this room. If you're good at this, try this out. If you're good at lucid dreaming, this is really easy. Slip right into dreamless sleep, so your mind has now dissolved into the substrate consciousness. You've not achieved shamatha, but you're in that domain. And now, when you're resting in that luminosity, that cognizance of your substrate consciousness, and what you're aware of is now divorced from dream reality, the creations of your mind, your samsaric mind, your desire realm mind, it's free of that, and it's withdrawn from all of the 5 sensory faculties of the desire realm. There you are, your mind clear and bright, aware of a field that is devoid of appearances, I mean no clear images coming up. And then a very simple question. Are you aware of the rhythm, even without being aware of tactile sensations? Bear in mind, in the dream you didn't have any tactile sensations, because you're not aware of your body lying in bed. Whatever appears to be a tactile sensation of your body in the dream is not a tactile sensation, it's purely mental. So it's not then a leap. It doesn't sound irrational or just crazy to think that you might be in a space where there are no appearances, but intuitively on a very subtle level, you're still in touch with the rhythm. It's kind of a deep rhythm. This is core, this is prana. And so even in the absence of appearances, now we can't imagine it, but then test it. If you're good at lucid dreaming, get good at lucid dreamless sleep, and then just see. And if you come up with nothing, let me know. But preliminary data from 2 independent sources, yeah, still aware of the rhythm, which is very interesting. Which means you could continue attending to that rhythm and fully achieve the first jhana, which means you're totally in the room, and then continue on that, achieve the 2nd and 3rd jhana, and then you come to the 4th jhana, your breathing stops. Now your mindfulness of breathing is stopped, because there's no breathing at all. Not even a rhythm of the breath. Yeah. So, clear? Fully klar. Fully klar. For the time being, enough. And again, it would be a shame if I were so eloquent and clear and brilliant in teaching that you're totally satisfied with my explanation. Oh, now I know the answer. Good. I don't have to ask that anymore. That would be unfortunate. Because then you would have just taken my words and said, oh, okay, good, I got it. Alan's real authority. He knows what he's talking about. Okay, I don't have to ask that question anymore. But that's not what happened. I gave you rather a strategy to actually test this for yourself. And that's much, much more valuable than just saying, this is what it's like at the end. So what? If you don't have a strategy to get there, then that's not very useful. Yeah. Hola, so. Man, are you getting over this environment? I'm not. I said, whoa. My heart keeps on just expanding and expanding. And I'm so glad to be here with spiritual friends and to revel in the great delight, the great dance of Mahamudra. So let's continue on the path, continue practicing. And I'd really encourage you to just keep on coming back for today, tomorrow, the next day. Keep on coming back. So melted butter would look really frigid compared to you. Like really uptight. Oh, that pool of melted butter over there. You've got a real problem. You must be really stressed out because you are just so mellow. You can hardly stand it. Okay, go there. Go deeply into relaxation without losing clarity. And if you're jet lagged, go deeper in relaxation and lose clarity. Get a good nap. Sleep it out, sleep it off. And then you'll come back and you'll be fully present. Okay? And please do say your first name.
My name is Andreas. I just have a quick question. I'd like to know where is an account of this practice of Asanga? So where is it written down? Is there any?
There is, yes. It's written down. It's a rather long exposition, about maybe 15 pages, 15 or 20. It's in one of the major classic works of Asanga from the 4th and 5th century. It's called in Sanskrit Shravaka Bhumi, or the grounds of the Shravakas, the grounds or levels of the Shravakas. And I have translated it from the Sanskrit and the Tibetan, and haven't quite decided what to do with it yet. If I ever want to publish it, then I can't let it go on into the public domain, then it's unpublishable, At the same time, I'd like it to be available. But that's the answer to your question. It's there and it's very detailed. And if you've studied the Anapanasati Sutta from the Buddha and the commentary, there's a great commentary by Buddhaghosa. They're probably both available online. It's simply the Anapanasati Sutta and commentary by Buddhaghosa. You'll find in the sutta and of course in the commentary that the Buddha explains this practice of mindfulness breathing in 16 phases, you recall? And the first 4 are Shamatha, the last 12 are Vipashyana, and they culminate in becoming an arhat. When you come to the culmination of these 16 phases, you're an arhat. That's straight Pali Canon and the Theravada. Well, interestingly, a Sangha picks up on these 16 phases as well, but he comments on them now from this Sanskrit Indo-Tibetan, Indian Buddhist tradition, but of course he's a Mahayana. So it's a very interesting interface. Some really bright scholar should do a comparative analysis of these 16 phases in Theravada and in the Mahayana tradition. But that's the answer to your question. Yeah. So, anything else coming up? Yes, please. So we don't have a portable microphone, just portable people. That's good, yeah. Your name?
Oh, my name is Brendan.
Thank you, Brendan.
And a clarification on the object. As I understand it, it's the sensations of the prana associated with the respiration.
Exactly.
Specifically between the nostrils and the lungs.
And then not the nostrils and the lungs. The passage of the air in your body is from the nostrils to the lungs, of course, and then it comes out again. The passage of prana, the different deal. The two are related. The breath and prana are related. They're not identical. And so, as the Sangha explains this, the flow of the prana is from the apertures of the nostrils down to the navel chakra.
Okay.
Down here, yeah.
And so, I guess there's sort of two things going on for me. I guess one is maybe that I'm so used to attending to the actual physical sensation of the breathing, and so that may be competing, but also that at times it just seems much more coarse than the prana that I'm able to detect, and so should I ignore or treat the physical sensation of the breathing as a distraction?
No, not as a distraction. I'll just articulate a bit more clearly, reiterate, and that is what you're focusing on are the movements, and I like the word fluctuations because that corresponds to what I experience, but they're both perfectly good translations from the Sanskrit and Tibetan. The movements or fluctuations within the body that correspond to the respiration. That's it. Now, does that include the rise and fall of the abdomen? Sure. Does it include any subtle kind of energetic flows within the body, from the nostrils to the navel chakra? Yes. How about peripherally? Might it also include kind of fluctuations you feel perhaps in the rest of your body, in your limbs, for example? The answer is yes. Yeah. So the center focus is going to be on this trajectory, this path from the nostrils to the navel chakra. But bear in mind, unlike in some Tibetan practices, and they're perfectly good in their own right, but unlike some Tibetan practices of mindfulness of breathing, this does not entail visualization. Okay? Gyalug Genjen Dupo, the one on Tsongkhapa's right, one of Tsongkhapa's major disciples, he wrote a commentary to the Abhidhamma Kosha, by Vasubandhu, who's the Sangha's brother. And in this, he gives an explanation of mindfulness of breathing. And who knows, it may be totally rooted in India, but to my mind it has a definite Tibetan quality to it. And there he goes into full-blown visualization. You really are visualizing the whole thing. So that's another way. I'm not going to say it's superior or inferior, but I find for myself, I like this bare attention mode. And then, of course, a visualization will get clearer and clearer and clearer as your vividness of your attention increases, whereas the sensations become subtler and subtler and subtler, and thereby arouse or invite you to enhance the vividness of your attention. So we're going to follow a Sangha here. You're welcome. Anything else? I thought I saw another hand here. Yes?
I'm Michelle. I'm finding, since being here, that I have a lot of mental chatter as well as physical discomfort during the practice.
Yeah.
And yesterday and the day before, I shifted to taking the mind as the path, to for a bit and then came back to the practice, and it seemed there was less chatter. But I'm wondering, is that a good approach, or to just stick with it? And eventually, I found at night when I'm practicing, I seem to settle down a bit more than during the day. So I'm wondering what's better, to just stick with it or to take this alternate route and come back?
Yeah. In terms of the mental chatter, there are two ways that can be understood. And one is, as in namdok, the compulsive thoughts. Mental chatter is a pretty good translation. Obsessive compulsive ideation, that kind of thing. But then the notion of mental chatter can also be translated over into excitation, mind wandering, agitation. And these are in fact distinct, right? So when you're practicing settling the mind in this natural state, let's imagine you get to stage 4, which is pretty formidable. So this means you're sitting down for 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, and you're never off target. You never completely disengage. So you'll have background noise, chatter, but it would be like my attending to you, but having wandering thoughts while I'm still engaging with you, right? And so when you're there, then it is said in the classic descriptions, this is specifically Lama Mipam Rinpoche, one of the great 19th century Dzogchen masters, that in this phase, your flow of mindfulness is pretty darn good. It's coming into its strength because you're no longer subject to coarse excitation, which again means complete disengagement, completely forgetting the meditative object. But do you recall how he characterizes the kind of the volume or the flow, the magnitude of thoughts? Do you remember that? It's worth memorizing. He says it's like a swiftly flowing mountain brook flowing down through a gorge, which suggests a lot of volume, right? Prior to that, it's like a cascading waterfall, which is chaotic and lots of volume, just all over the place. But now when you get to this stage, then he said, okay, now it's like a mountain brook swiftly flowing down through a gorge, but which still implies a lot of chatter. I mean, that's a lot of flow. But here's where we really are highlighting, for this particular practice, settling the mind in its natural state. Your awareness is still, but the flow of chatter is still quite strong. Okay? And so when you say there's a lot of chatter, well, on the one hand, welcome to your mind. When I was first taught Shamatha, and I say that, in friendliness, you know that, but that's the way it is. When I was first taught Shamatha by Geshe Ngawang Taige, he said the very first sign that you're progressing in the practice is that for the first time you recognize how chaotic your mind is. You just recognize the sheer volume. Because of course what we attend to is our reality. So if I, as many people are most of the time, focusing outwards and outwards and outwards, I could be under the illusion that I'm quite sane. And it's the world that's crazy. Whereas when you direct the awareness inwards, it's like, whoa, it's noisy in here. And it's also chaotic, and this is not exactly a healthy mind. It's uptight, agitated, and then poops out in dullness. And then I wake up and I'm uptight and agitated again. So this fluctuation is ADHD, which is generic nowadays. And so the recognition, now you're in this very quiet environment, with the kind of the punctuation marks of the rock quarry across the valley. It's kind of like nice little punctuation marks of quiet. But now that you're here and we have very few demands on our time, it is a time when we can be more vividly aware of the amount of mental chatter going on, right? That's a good thing. But then just being swept away by it in coarse excitation, that's not a good thing. That's just same old, same old. So now to answer your question explicitly, Shamatha is completely pragmatic. I say the criteria for choosing one method over another and the criteria for evaluating, is this practice helping? Because that's a perfectly good question. Having goals, I want to achieve 4th state in 6 weeks or whatever, that's, that mudra always comes up. The mudra, by the way, for people in podcasts, is I'm looking at my fist. I want to achieve, why don't we start grinding the jaws, and grinding the teeth. I want to achieve, shamatha or bust. That's not helpful. And to be kind of obsessively concerned with progress. Am I progressing? Am I progressing? How far am I? How long is it going to take? Are we there yet? That kind of thing. Not helpful. Not helpful. It's all fixation and grasping. At the same time, we're in general meditating rather than not meditating, and we're choosing one type of method over another type of method because we like to see benefit. That's perfect. That's not grasping, that's being sensible, right? And so in this regard, if we choose shamatha, among the wide array of practices to choose from, then we can ask, why are you doing it? You know, and the answer is so transparently clear. Relaxation, stability, and clarity, always, always, always. And then as we're practicing from week to week, month to month, then it's perfectly legitimate to say, is it working? Am I feeling more at ease in body and mind? And if the answer is yes, good. And again, to elaborate just a little bit on that, if one goes, let's say goes and goes to a gym or a physical fitness center, and you have a trainer, so you're taking it pretty seriously. And let's say you're meeting with your trainer for a week, 3 times a week, for example, pretty serious fitness person. If after the first session you turn to your trainer and said, "Well, I'm not any skinnier, and I'm not any stronger, and I just spent an hour with you. What's up? You know, should I find another trainer?" I mean, we're all laughing, you know. But if you go after 1 week and say, "Well, you know, I've only lost 1/2 of a pound. I'm quite disappointed," and you know, then we still laugh, you know. But so then we can ask. But again, you're going to the gym for a particular purpose. It's not just because nothing else to do. So when is a reasonable time where we don't start chuckling? And the answer is after a month. After a month. That's what I've heard from people. I have no professional training there, but I know people. And after a month of regular exercise, bum, 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 then you can say, all right, after 1 month now, how do I feel? Do I feel any stronger? And so forth, the basic criteria. I think that's reasonable for shamatha. But now, having said that, this is complex. With physical fitness, it's kind of straightforward. Are you stronger? Are you more resilient? If you have excess weight, is that dropping off? That's pretty straightforward. But as we've seen, and I'm about to sneeze, that'll be interesting. No, maybe I'm not. People listening by podcast, you're about to have a big explosion. This, as we see, is more nuanced. Because, and this is something you don't see in the media. I have my eyes wide open for any media coverage of meditation, its pros and cons and so forth. And I've seen it frequently in the general media and even sometimes like in Buddhist journals, that if people meditate and then they start having some unpleasant experiences, you know, and then the finger, you see meditation is bad for you. And this is the downside of meditation. You might feel anxiety. You might feel bad in your body. You might feel, you know, it just shows they're clueless. I mean, it's so naive. I just want to elaborate. It's kind of like the Pope was in Mexico not long ago. And he held Mass for like 1 million people. Enormous turnout. And I think we all have a sense of who he is. He really strikes me as an extraordinary individual, truly saintly man. And during this Mass, somebody came over to him. He's right there among the people. You know, he's not surrounded by bodyguards. And somebody came over to him and grabbed him and then wouldn't let him go and then pulled him down on top of a man who's in a wheelchair, a cripple, you know. And the Pope turned to him with a little bit of sternness and scolded him. The media lopped off. Oh, you thought the Pope was so nice. Look, here he's really getting angry. Like, it's so naive. If you're a holy man, you'd always just be, oh yes, you just pulled me on a crippled man. That was too bad that happened. Oh, jeez, you have to have bananas for brains. You know. So I think not you. But generally, we have to start growing up here, that saints do not always appear like marshmallows and honey. And those of you who have had Tibetan lamas, you know they may avail themselves of peaceful, expansive, powerful, and wrathful, and they all have their place in the appropriate time with the same motivation. So having said that, now that I'll get off my soapbox, we need to finesse this a little bit. And that is, you may be practicing this mindfulness of breathing very authentically, not pushing it, doing it just impeccably. And you may have some really strange, weird, and even unpleasant sensations come up in the body. That's not a bad sign. It's not that meditation is bad. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's supposed to happen, you know. That's the pranic correlate of the kind of unknotting, the unraveling of the mind. And likewise, when we settle the mind in its natural state, well, on the first day you start opening up the Pandora's box. You might just have more coming out than you had expected. And then what comes out is not, again, all marshmallows and honey. You know, it can be all kinds of things, cockroaches, scorpions, etc., etc. And that's a good thing. That's what's supposed to come out. So you're a savvy practitioner. Then you want to apply your savviness to evaluating, you know, is this a deviation? Is this something wrong? Or is this right on track? But always for the criterion come back to that stillness in motion. That it's not a bad thing if unpleasant sensations are arising in the body. It's not a bad thing if unpleasant emotions are coming up. Even mental afflictions are getting catalyzed. It's not a bad thing. But are you identifying with the sensations of the body, getting caught up in them, then that's not very useful. It's not useful at all, actually. You're just feeling bad. And likewise, if you're getting caught up and carried away by the emotions, by memories, by mental afflictions, well, that's not meditation. That's just reliving or getting, you know, immersed in one's mental afflictions. So the finesse is there. But we have the three qualities, and then the three qualities of shamatha by which to evaluate, and then beyond that, then we always are coming back to this. The stillness in the midst of the motion. So let them, the motions, let them be whatever they are. And we have this in the microcosm when we're sitting on a cushion or we're in the supine position. The microcosm is there within this phrase from Marvin Minsky, the society of the mind. The society of the mind. And that is, within the society of the mind, sometimes muggers come up, and sometimes friendly neighbors, and sometimes irascible, and sometimes rabid dogs, all kinds of things come up. That's the society of the mind. But here we have a little microcosm where the society of the mind is all the people who show up in the mind's eye. But then we step off the cushion, whether we're going over to the Tsongkhap Institute for meals, or we're coming out of this retreat and we're meeting with, you know, global society. And it's going to be the same principle at work. And that is in the midst of the sometimes very pleasant activities, sometimes unpleasant, sometimes sane, sometimes really quite crazy movements of the world around us. In the midst of all of that, can we sustain that quiet, calm, that stillness, that clarity, that discernment that is not, and I'll end on this point, that is not dissociation. It's not withdrawal. It's not fear. It's not anxiety. It's not I can't handle it and an expression of escapism. Nor is it, so that would be the extreme of quietism, to use classic Buddhist terminology. The extreme of quietism, which the total extreme of that is bailing off into nirvana and never coming back. That is escapism. What else do you call it? The great escape, you know. And then the other extreme, from the Mahayana perspective, the other extreme, of course, is same old, same old. Just twirling around in the hedonic treadmill of samsara, immersed in everything, identified with everything, and perpetuating our own samsara with delusion, craving, and hostility. So this is the middle way. This is very Mahayana. It's very Mahayana. You don't find this technique. You don't find this as taking the mind as a path in the Pali Canon or the Theravada. Could be, it's compatible, but it is in fact a Mahayana path. And it's really kind of resonant with the whole theme of the Bodhisattva ideal. And that is you're in the midst of, whether you're following the shepherd-like bodhicitta, the helmansman-like, or the king-like bodhicitta, you're in the midst of samsara, but you're not caught up in it. And again, the analogy is that of a lucid dream. You don't just escape, and there are all kinds of strategies you can follow. If you're become lucid, and some really nasty things start happening in the dream, you have all kinds of options, lots of options. Number one, if you just want to wake up, you can. Say, this is a rotten dream, I'm out of here. And you hit the ejector, you find the little, you pop out, you know, like out of a cockpit in a jet. That's always a possibility. Just wake up. I don't want to be here. Or, if the unpleasantness is over here, just turn into Superwoman, you know, and fly away. Or turn into, we need another of the mythical character, the female of Godzilla. Godzillas? I don't know. And just, you know, overwhelm that which is disturbing you. Or be a magician, a great sorceress, and transform it. You do all kinds of things. You can escape, you can dominate, you can transform, you can wake up altogether, or you can just be present in the dream and be totally present with it and see how it plays out. Stillness in the midst of the motion of the dream. Yeah. So that's what we're emulating here, of course. We're moving in the direction, and the continuum is very strong. From going from non-lucidity in a dream to lucidity with respect to the mind while dreaming, and then specifically in settling the mind its natural state, we're going from non-lucidity to lucidity with respect to the mind, in the waking state, we're becoming lucid with respect to the mind while we're awake, and we're recognizing mental events as mental events. This is really powerful. And that's exactly what you do when you're having a lucid dream. Those are all mental events. There's no people there. There are no places. There are no knives. They are sheer apparitions, like holographic displays of your own mind. And there's nothing there, right? And therefore you can be fearless. And here, in the waking state, in settling the mind in its natural state in particular, it's the same. We're also attending to the same cinema as in the dream. Same cinema. It's the same cinema complex. It's the same room. It's the domain of the mind, and it's the same type of events arising. But when we're having mind-wandering, rumination, reliving past experiences and so forth, it's exactly like a non-lucid dream, but in the waking state. And therefore we're vulnerable. People kill themselves because of what's going on in their minds. They can't stand it anymore. And they figure the only way out is, stop existing. They wish. I kind of wish that were possible for them, in a way, but I actually don't. Because then they would have no more Buddha nature. If they actually stopped, they'd be able to kill their Buddha nature. That would be really quite something. But that's not possible. And so we're seeking to become lucid with respect to the mind in the waking state, in settling the mind in its natural state. And then we take one step further, and we seek to become lucid in the waking state with respect to everything that's around us. And maintain that same sanity even when things around us may be not all that sane. So, that's that. Enjoy your day, and let's continue practicing through the day and enjoy it.